Greetings petrolheads, welcome back to Automation the Car Company Tycoon game. Today is going to be the last review of the Fanbuild competition. And it's going to be the Ravager sent in by Donovan Chapman. Now there's two versions, and he says they both have pretty similar performance. One is a little bit more expensive, but not much, and they do have pretty different kind of ways of getting to that performance though. So first of all, we are using the body, the kind of modern muscle car body again. Aesthetically, I'm not too fond of the headlights, but I can see that it's kind of a unique take on it. So I'm sure there's going to be people who like it. And yes, okay, we already know that. We got a galvanized steel monocoque. Galvanized steel is, I think that's the only entry I've gotten that uses galvanized steel. We've had AHS steel before, I think I can remember. Longitudinal engine placement, McPherson's up front, double wishbone rear, a fiberglass panel material. So the panels are actually lightweight. The chassis is not really. I like the vents on the bonnet. And in combination with that, bonnet hump looks pretty aggressive and cool, like a muscle car. Got some vents on the side as well for additional, probably brake airflow or something like that. Quad exhausts, aggressive bumper, some vents on the middle. I like the rear end. What do you think? Yeah, so that is the aesthetics and the chassis. This one is rear drive, and we have a 4-liter V8 under the bonnet. It uses modern OHV, modern pushrods, has a really high stroke in comparison to its bore, and it has a cast iron block and head. Billet steel crank, I-beam steel conrods, and lightweight forged pistons. Curious to know why it didn't go for the I-beam titanium. Yeah, they're quite a bit more expensive, about $400 more expensive. That's why, probably. Okay. 71 cam profile is relatively high for an engine that has such high stroke, meaning that it won't rev that high anyway. Especially with the modern OHV. This part is restricting of that is actually the cam set. That's the intake, and so we do have VVT though. That must, is that this? No. It's gotta be the valves. The amount of valves per cylinder, right? In any case, 12.5 compression ratio is relatively high. It is naturally aspirated. We got direct injection, throttle per cylinder configuration, performance intake, running on super fuel, but all the way leaned out. Now that's an interesting take. You can also see that not only is the engine not making a really impressive amount of torque, it also makes it way up top, and that makes for a pretty unusual experience in a pushrod V8. I would suggest. At the same time, like, if you're gonna be making any power in a 4-liter pushrod V8, like you gotta tune it aggressively. Long tubular headers, dual exhausts, so this is certainly more than big enough. No first muffler, but a reverse flow second muffler. That's interesting. We got a 6-speed manual, pretty high top speed, automatic locker. Now that, as you can see, has very low drivability, but it does make for great acceleration off the line. The wheel spin is, you know, 20.3%, but right off the line, when the rear wheels are locked together, they won't spin very much at all, and which is why I would imagine this 0 to 100 is quite a bit faster than if we went for open. Yep, 5.8. So automatic locker it is, 5.2. 235s all around. That is interesting, not making the rear wheels and the rear tires wider than the front ones, but you do get a decent steering graph here. That's actually really solid between sportiness and drivability. Medium compound road tires, maybe a little bit. I mean, it's fine as a choice, but probably more for a sports car. Sports tires would be a little bit more suitable. 17-inch rims are totally okay. We get alloy rims as well. 2 piston vented discs up front and 2 piston vented discs on the rear, but the pad type is all the way up at the race. This gives you the advantage that you can basically have stronger brakes without actually needing to change the brake type, the amount of pistons, or the size. But it will make for lower drivability and comfort in most situations, unless you would be making brake fade without it, in which case raising this pad type would actually give you more drivability because it gets rid of the brake fade. Fully clad under tray. Do we have lips or wings in this thing? No, none at all, so this doesn't matter. Cooling airflow is more than enough. We get some brake airflow too. 2 seats, standard interior, basic infotainment, so the same kind of setup that we have in the Mamba. No power steering, but all other driver assists again. So this is one more of those cars, huh? I don't know if you wanna make for a purist driving experience, if you want to call it that, which is what I'm assuming, because you don't have power steering, then I would definitely also not have at the very least no launch control, and probably also no stability control. That'll boost your sportiness up some more, but obviously lose some drivability. But if you want to make this car kind of, I don't know, accessible for everyone, then you should definitely also go for power steering. So this right here is kind of a, you know, halfway solution. Not really either of the two options. Not really a purist car, not really a car for everyone either. So maybe a little bit questionable. Standard springs with semi-active dampers and active sway bars are totally fine. The advantage that this setup has over active sport, semi-active and then passive, is that it is lighter and less expensive. So yeah, this suspension setup looks to be pretty average, pretty normal, with a little bit stiffer sway bar maybe, and lower ride height. We do have a good bit of bottoming out, but this will probably increase the performance, the cornering performance around the track. 1400 kilograms is relatively heavy by comparison, but then again we also are using a pretty large body shell and a large cast iron engine. Well, 4 liters is not that large, but you get the idea. Excuse me, 5.3? Let's go back to this. It's still 5.3. Well, okay. Let's see, what does it do around the I4 track? .8, and it cost, well, 25,000. Okay, well, that is surely still acceptable. Like $16, that's no problem. Well, so decent performance, plenty of power for the money, and you know, as much as I hate to say it, I can't really find a big weak spot, but we haven't checked out the running costs. Running costs are maybe a little bit on the higher side, but that's not surprising on a 4-liter V8, is it? And also the economy is a little bit higher than on, you know, the reference car, but at the same time this also has a lot more displacement and a lot more power, so there is that. Acceleration off the line is, for the extra power, not that impressive. Even compared to the V6 Mamba, which has 250 horsepower, it is lighter, it is mid-engine, has more traction, and it also costs more. So I don't even want to bring that onto a table. So, but for 25 grand, where you can have the 1.5 liter Mamba that does it in 6.2 seconds, this is obviously faster. Then again, it's got a 4-liter V8, so it better be faster, right? But there is another trim too. And that is this one right here. Looking like we have a wing on the back on this one. It's probably a little bit more orientated towards track performance. And we'll see. It also has a different engine. It's got a 2-liter turbo inline 4. It's a 86 by 86, so perfectly square. Aluminium block and head. Dual overhead cam, 4 volts per cylinder, but no BBL. And then all the best bottom end parts. 67 cam profile, so moderately aggressive, but not overly aggressive. Ball bearing air-to-air large intercooler to save weight and also cost. Pretty large turbine and a good bit of boost. This is typically not how I would set up my turbo, just because the high turbo and the high turbine size makes it so the turbo will spool up kind of late. I would lower the turbine size considerably, but bump up the AR ratio to achieve similar amounts of power. Maybe that's just the way I tune turbo engines. Because in the end what matters is the performance it delivers, right? So throttle per cylinder configuration performance intake. That's pretty sporty indeed. Super fuel again, and again all the way leaned out for, you know, somewhat decent economy. Ignition timing is really low, 43. Can't really remember the last time I used an ignition timing this low on a sporty car. RPM limit is 7600 RPM. So what that means in essence is that since in automation the cars always launch at half of their maximum RPM limit, this car will launch at 3800 RPM, which would be roughly here where my mouse pointer is right now. And there you can see that the turbo is not fully spooled up yet, so it'll probably take just a little bit until it reaches those 4100 RPM where it is fully spooled up, and then it goes. So usually it's better to set up the turbo in such a way that it reaches its max boost before halfway through the RPM limit, through the RPM range. That'll give it better acceleration off the line at least. Exhaust diameter is massive. That's one word. One word you can use for this. Straight through mufflers front and rear. So, you know, not the loudest engine, because it is turbocharged and that does reduce noise by quite a bit. Let's see what do we have in this in the trim tab. It's a 6-speed manual again a relatively good top speed. Automatic locker once again. It is all-wheel drive, and then medium command road tires, same tire width, smaller brakes even, still all the way up on the pad type, fully clad under tray still, and we do have a wing on this one. Not messing with the wing angles though. And then cooling is again more than enough, and the same setup on the interior but with power steering this time. And then the almost exact same suspension setup, only that the sway bar stiffness has been changed. That's one thing I can see at least. Again, quite a bit of bottoming out, which means right now it is too low for ideal drivability at least. But now this makes better economy. It weighs more obviously. It'll get more traction and better acceleration off the line. But how does it stack up around the track? .75, so that's almost identical. It is quite a bit faster in the first section because of the acceleration of the line, but once the V8 hooks up, it's faster in section 2 and 3. That's interesting. What I don't really like about this, the way this thing is set up, is the extremely short gearing in the lower gears, and very long spacing in the higher gears. That is a combination that already makes the Mercedes A45 AMG kind of not ideal for longer acceleration runs. Like, it does get smacked by, you know, the BMW 335 or M135i or whatever it's called. It gets beaten by the what's it called, the Audi RS3 and stuff like that on longer acceleration runs, even though those other cars are making less power, and the A45 AMG is faster off the line. So it is a combination that for heavily turbocharged engines doesn't work that well. So if we could change, so it was a 92 at first. If we could space this out a little bit more, or let's see, what does this give us? 4.9 seconds actually. That's not good at all. But what if we go for something like 4.6? Let's go. There's a 4.6 still. Let's leave it at 70 for now. We remember that the original spacing was 92. Let's see what this does in comparison on this right here, on this longer acceleration run. 200 in about 18.5 seconds, I would say, and the entire track in 121.33 with 70 spacing. It was in 92 though. that is slightly, that is about the same from 0 to 200, but it is slower. Over the entire 5 kilometers straight here. And that has to do with the fact that yes, in the lower RPMs you're shifting like back into the power band, but then when you reach the higher gears where acceleration is, you know, lower anyways, because you're already moving faster and the gear ratio has to be longer so you can achieve higher speeds in it. But in the higher gears where acceleration is tougher already, you're shifting back lower into power range, meaning that we're gonna have a tougher time getting back up to the high RPM range where you're actually making the power. Whereas if you had longer gearing in the earlier gears, yes, your 0 to 100 time and possibly your quarter mile time would be a little bit slower, but for longer acceleration runs you would just have shorter higher gears, which means you could always shift back into power band, which is usually how I like to set up my performance cars. Because let's be honest, how often are you really gonna be taking your car over, say, 60 or 70 miles an hour? The only times you're gonna do that is when you have an opportunity to go flat out, right? And when you go flat out, you wanna have acceleration in all gears. It just feels a lot better if you have a car that really pulls hard in every single gear. And to achieve that effect, it is better to have long gearing on the early gears and shorter gearing in the higher gears. Overall, how do I feel about this car? Well, to be honest, I think I don't really agree with the way you set up your turbo engine. With the very high turbine size, yes, it bumps up the number of torque that you have, but like the amount of torque that you have is going to be higher. But if you reduce the turbine size but crank up the AR ratio quite a bit, and to achieve the same amount of power, you're going to have the turbo spooling up earlier, and that'll make your engine more flexible and thus overall faster. And what else is there? Yeah, on the V8 version, I don't really see why this doesn't have power steering. Oh, and also on what I should point out, we haven't looked at the running costs and the overall cost of the all-wheel drive version yet. So this cost under 25k, is not particularly competitive in any category, or like not above 100 anywhere. Light sport, track, muscle is good. What about running costs? Yeah, this is what I expected. This is quite a bit cheaper to run than the V8, which should be kind of obvious. But I think that the drivability for a 2-liter turbo with all-wheel drive is kind of low. So that is one thing I wanted to point out. So, okay, I think I think that's all I had to say about this car. Obviously, leave your feedback on the car in the comments below. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and leave a like or a comment if you did. Thank you for watching. I will see you next time.